The chairman, founder, and CEO of Chedid Capital and chairman of Chedid Re. He is also a member of the advisory board of Euromena 2 private equity fund. Mr. Chedid led the incremental growth of Chedid Group to branch out from Cyprus into Lebanon, UAE, Greece, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. The first Chedid Group company was Chedid Re, which was established in Cyprus in 1998 and has expanded to become a reinsurer broking powerhouse in the MENA region with business in more than 22 countries. Mr. Chedid's business achievements moved on with the formation of SEEB Insurance and Reinsurance Company and Chedid and Associates Qatar, both authorized by the Qatar Financial Center. Farid Chedid is an associate in the CII, holds a master's degree in management, a master's degree in finance, a bachelor's degree in economics, and a postgraduate diploma in maritime law. Please welcome Mr. Chedid.
Thank you. Arab Mediterranean insurance companies, a time for regional amalgamation. When we discussed the topic with my dear friend Abraham, and we talked about the insurance companies throughout the Mediterranean region, we thought of suggesting this topic. We believe that there is a need for amalgamation in the industry throughout the Mediterranean region, at the very least, the Arab Mediterranean region. The agenda of my presentation, a brief introduction to the MENA insurance markets, the Arab Mediterranean insurance market, a time for regional amalgamation, the benefits of this amalgamation and the barriers to the amalgamation. How can we do it? Mergers, acquisitions. Why mergers and acquisitions? What are the advantages of M&A? And what are the financing alternatives? A quotation from Harvey Firestone. The growth and development of people is the highest calling of leadership. The MENA insurance market. When we look at this graph, we see that from 2003 to 2009, we have a region, the entire region from the Gulf, Middle East, and North Africa, has reached $19.6 billion, a compounded annual growth rate over 6 years of 18%. This is one of the fastest growing insurance markets around the world, with the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Morocco, Egypt, and Lebanon representing 70% of the entire market. There are more than 450 insurance companies in this region, 450 in 19 countries. The market size is expected to exceed $37 billion by 2014. This is on a compounded annual growth rate assumption of 13%. The Arab Mediterranean insurance markets, it is made of Morocco, Egypt, Lebanon, Algeria, Tunisia, Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine. The last 6 years, we had a compounded annual growth rate of 13%. The market led by Morocco, Egypt, and Lebanon controlled 70% of the market share of the entire market. There are more than 130 insurance companies and reinsurance companies based in these 8 territories. The market size is expected to exceed $11.5 billion by 2014. These assumptions are of the market size are a combination from Swiss Re and Axco. A quotation from Kofi Annan. It has been said that arguing against globalization is like arguing against the laws of gravity. Globalization is happening. We need to be, as companies in this region, we need to be ready for it. Fighting against it is not a pragmatic solution. Amalgamation. What are the benefits of amalgamation? We have cost benefit, a timing benefit, a learning benefit, arbitrage benefit, and diversification. If I may explain each one. At the cost level, there is definitely economies of scale and economies of scope. There are standardization of products, services, and processes. There is an increased bargaining power. All of these reduce costs for companies. The timing, a coordinated approach in launching products and services. The learning advantage, ease of transfer of information, best practices and people in order to implement innovative product, processes, services, or strategies. On the arbitrage side, the arbitrage benefits, the pressure from one side may relieve pressure from another side. If we have a market where we have a lower growth, we have another market where we might have a faster growth. There is also an advantage related to price, costs, taxes, and interest by doing arbitrage between different territories. The diversification, insurance relies on diversification. A larger pool of non-correlated, homogeneous risks is definitely an advantage for any insurance company. And the reducing of it will reduce the aggregate capital required and improve groups' rating. What are the barriers or the common barriers to regional amalgamation? There are usually cultural barriers. Use of products or services is affected by local traditions and values. Commercial barrier. The commercial barrier encompasses distribution, customization, and responsiveness. The technical barrier, some territories have different technical approaches to insurance and risk management, and the standards can be different as well. We have also the political, economic, and social barrier, which is the distance, transportation, language, economic factors. They all represent a serious barrier. We also have in our region specifically differences or non-harmonization of regulation in the different countries. These barriers are seen around the world, but most of them are not really for us. So what are the mitigating factors for the Arab Mediterranean region? If we take the cultural barrier, we have a high level of cultural similarities and religious homogeneity between the territories in which we are involved. The commercial barrier, distribution, customization, and responsiveness are closely related between the different countries in the Arab Mediterranean region. There is a trend that is usually followed between the different countries. The technical barrier, there is a trend between countries to adopt successful standards and the learning benefit of a good integrating factor. Political, economical, and social barrier, transportation and language is not an issue. It has an integrative role in the Arab Mediterranean region. However, the political factor is still a hindrance, is still a difficulty, and definitely regulation is a hindrance, and without the homogenization, we will be delayed in this process. How this amalgamation can be performed? Mergers, acquisitions. The future of the region is through further integration. If we take our region, including, or the entire region, MENA and Gulf, 450 insurance companies. This is a very large number related to the size of the population. If we look at the Arab Mediterranean region, 130 insurance companies. This is, again, a very large number for 8 or 9 territories. So with the trend of globalization, and when we're seeing that international or global companies are coming to the region, the only way to compete is through creating regional groups that can benefit from a larger market, a larger scale, and economies of scale and economies of scope. It is a necessity, it's vital for the companies in our region. A successful regional strategy needs to take into consideration the weaknesses of a global strategy, the lack of flexibility, the lack of proximity in the decision-making, and the slow response time to customers. However, by being present in the region, by creating regional groups, these weaknesses can be managed. Mergers and acquisitions route may be better suited than greenfield. It takes, on average, 2 years to set up, launch, apply, launch an insurance company. So why not acquire an existing insurance company in a different territory? The other factor through greenfield project is that through a greenfield project, you have at least 2 to 3 years of negative cash flow, pre-operating expenses. Whilst when you acquire, yes, you have an immediate outflow of cash, or there can be other alternatives to pay for the acquisition. However, you do not incur a negative cash flow. What are the advantages of M&A, merger and acquisition strategies? Growth, control, synergies, and horizontal integration. Let's take first the growth aspect. A faster pace, in particular in a high local competitive market, a market where you already have a number of insurance companies. Why set up a greenfield project? Why not acquire an existing company? You can immediately grab market share and volume. The success is also linked to the retention of talent and top talent. One of the major difficulties we have in the region, when you have 450 insurance companies, that means 450 CEOs, 450 CFOs, 450 compliance officers, 450 chief underwriting officer. A new company, that means a new CEO, a new underwriter. All of these have scarcity value. By acquiring, you are able to have the benefit of existing team, existing staff. Through acquisition, you can also make sure that larger size is translated into larger profits through homogeneity of risks, through better control of the business. So the control allows you to increase cash flow from the existing assets that are in place. You can also upgrade technology, processes, training, and recruiting. You can improve the working capital requirements, and you can change the debt and equity mix. For a new greenfield project, you can only operate through, and you can only set up a company by putting up capital. With an acquisition, you can rely on debt. So it can change your mix between equity and debt. The synergies. What are the synergies? The operating synergy through new opportunities that arise by the combination of two entities. You have a mix. By mixing two portfolios, two teams, you can create synergies. You can create economies of scale. The economy of scale is the reduction on a per unit basis of your costs because you have a larger volume. You can also benefit from economies of scope. Through the economies of scope are the fact that with the same existing costs that you have, you can provide wider network and wider products and services. You have the financial synergies through the reduction of risk if the two entities' cash flow is not correlated. How can you do that? If you have two territories, one of them that has earthquake exposure and the other that doesn't have earthquake exposure, you can benefit from the fact that you will not have the losses at the same time. You will be able to improve your aggregation of risks. You will be able to reduce the volatility in your results and therefore improve the rating with the same level of combined capital. Horizontal integration, it definitely increases the market power, the bargaining power, whether with clients, with reinsurers, or with anyone, with any supplier. You have also the very fact that a lot of the clients in the region, whether they are banks or any institutions, are expanding regionally because they are seeing also the danger or the necessity of having a regional approach and a regional strategy, so you'll be able to service clients across the region. So you'll have a bigger impact by enhancing the scope and distribution for these or the same clients that are expanding. You'll be able to service them better. And an increased profitability coupled with a reduction in the cost of capital. Cost of capital reduces whenever you have improved or reduction in volatility, and you'll be able to provide better returns for your shareholders. The financing alternatives. Without a doubt, there is the alternative of debt. An acquisition strategy can be financed through debt. You can also take into consideration that any insurance company generates positive cash flow, and you can use the free cash flow that you have to acquire companies. You can also rely and have the assistance of venture capital. And venture capital is defined as all forms of equity funding in non-listed businesses made and provided by external parties. It has the following added value: provision of management assistance, provision and assistance in corporate governance. It can provide financial capital. It can provide monitoring and control, and it can provide a reputational capital. You also have the option of IPOs, initial public offering, and there can be share swapping if the companies are listed. In conclusion, a say from Benjamin Franklin: to succeed, jump as quickly at opportunities as you do at conclusions. Our belief is that the future of the region is through further integration. You already have regional groups that are very successful. The future is for regional groups. The Arab Mediterranean region is crowded with insurance companies, more than 130 companies for a total population of 190. There is a need for insurance companies in the region to merge in order to form groups that can compete and maybe in the future compete on a global basis. The financing of such a venture is not difficult. You have different mechanisms and different alternatives. The future lays with companies that can build a portfolio of business which can give them economies of scale and economies of scope. This is very important. This is one of the major drive for M&A, and this is one of the major drive why international companies and global companies acquire rather than set up greenfield companies. One of the major hindrances is legislation and regulation. And I think we all have a role to play in terms of lobbying local regulator to help harmonize regulation, legislation, laws in the region. Without a doubt, it will be an integrative approach will be very difficult if there is no harmonization. Without an appropriate size, companies would not be able to compete in the world of tomorrow. It's a game of size. Thank you.